I just want people to feel loved and to feel seen and to feel a sense of connection. And I think there's so much in the world right now that is so divisive and that is so surrounded on negativity. There's also so much good, and I just want to be somebody that brings happiness and joy and love to people and a sense of connection. I think my slogan is like happy girl, sad songs. Like I'm a very optimistic, bubbly, outgoing person, but then people hear my music and they're like, are you okay? Like, why is your music so sad?
Welcome to the Legacy Project. My name is Jim Copple. I'm the president of the Servant Forge Foundation. We're an organization committed to leadership development with a specific focus on service. We interview people on this podcast about the legacies they have inherited and discuss the legacy they want to create. Our legacies are about core values and beliefs that we have inherited from a previous generation and are about to pass them on to the next generation. Become part of this project of being intentional about legacy. What is the legacy you choose to create? Well, Ashley, welcome to the podcast, the Legacy Project podcast. I'm so excited that you're a part of this. We're talking with Ashley Hess, who currently lives in New York. Ashley, were you originally from Utah?
No, I'm originally from California, from the Bay Area.
The Bay Area. Oh,
yeah.
That's a great place to be from.
Yes, so, agreed.
Yeah. I met Ashley some time ago. We were both attending an event that Chick-fil-A hosted, the Beloved event in Atlanta, Georgia. And we kind of hung out together for several days and really was impressed. Some of you will know Ashley, who was a finalist in the 2019 American Idol program. And I know that the people I know that know Ashley are quite impressed, and having heard her music, I am impressed as well, and I think you will be too. But we're glad you're a part of the Legacy Project.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Ashley, you're from California. Give us a little bit about your family background. What's your family history?
So, yeah, I grew up in California. My mom was from California as well, from the Bay Area, and my dad was from Utah, from Kaysville. And I have 3 siblings. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. I'm really close with my family. I grew up doing a lot of different things. I played a lot of sports. I did music too, but I wasn't as into music as I expected to be. I mean, that came later, a little bit later in life. But my dad sings. He's an amazing singer. My mom plays the piano. So I grew up with music around the house. My parents are also come from big families too. My dad has, there's 7 kids in his family. My mom has 5 kids in her family. And so just come from a big, long line of big families. But my family's really close, and I just feel really grateful for that. The older I get, the more appreciative I am to be really close with my siblings and with my family and even my extended family. But yeah, that's a little bit about my family background.
Where did you go to school? Did you go to college?
Yeah, so I went to Utah Valley University, initially thinking I wanted to study dental hygiene because my goal was to play sports. I wanted to be a volleyball player. And then I was attending a girls' camp in high school for my church, and we got in a bus accident, and I sprained both my ankles, and it just kind of like derailed a lot of my sports dreams a little bit because it was my senior year. And so then I kind of was back to the drawing board of what I wanted to do. So I moved to Utah, and they have a really good dental hygiene program. I worked in an oral surgeon's office growing up, so I was like, well, I'll give this a shot. And then started doing that and realized I didn't want to do that, and then that's when I got into music. So
my granddaughter's going to UVU this
fall. So, amazing. Yeah, it was great. A great school.
And so she's also interested in music. So
really? I'll have to chat with her.
Yeah, is that where you developed your passion for music? Or?
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, I grew up in California, which you would think that that's where all of my music dreams started. I sang a lot growing up. I sang in like a church choir and did things like that, but sang in school too, but I was really nervous. I was really scared to sing in front of people. Like obviously I loved doing it, but I just never thought I would actually pursue it because I was so scared to sing in front of large crowds of people. But when I moved to Utah, I just became friends with a lot of people that actually were very musically talented, and I saw how big the music community was there, which was really surprising to me. I didn't really expect that, but there were a lot of people actually pursuing music and they would be performing quite often. And I just kind of got introduced to the music community out there. And so I started singing more. I started teaching myself how to play guitar, picking up piano again. And then I started writing my own music. And then things kind of just took off from there.
So a little bit of a complicated question, and I don't. But why music? Why do you? Why are you so engaged in music today?
That's a great question. I think I just really connected with music from a very early age. Like, I just felt like it spoke to me and it cut through more than almost anything else for me. I remember as a little kid watching this show called The Land Before Time that's about dinosaurs, and there's this song, like this ballad in the song that I just remember as like a 4 or 5-year-old just like sitting there crying to, because I was so touched by the song, which is like, looking back now, it's so silly listening to the song. But I just have a lot of memories of just music having a really big impact on me. Music was always playing in my home. Like I said, my dad has a beautiful singing voice. My mom is a great piano player. So I just grew up with music around, and I kind of picked up piano a little bit. I play by ear, so I could hear something and kind of figure it out on the piano. And I just felt really connected to it. And it also became a really good outlet for me to express myself when I would just sit at the piano and like make up little songs or just kind of be humming to myself. I just loved the way it made me feel whenever I was playing or listening or singing. And that just kind of was an instant connection from as early as I can remember.
So I'm going to circle back to this question again, but I want to ask you first, in terms of who you are, the legacy you've inherited, what are the values that are most important to you?
Ooh, that is a great question. The values that are most important to me, something that I'm really appreciative of with my parents is just how my parents are both so hardworking, but they're also very just loving and accepting of other people, and are always, I just remember from a very, very early age just how quick my parents were always to help other people and to take other people in, and to just really focus on community and just loving people. And that was something that I felt like they taught me and my siblings to do, more so from their actions rather than their words. Obviously, like, they would talk to us about those things, but just seeing the way that they showed up for the people in our lives and in their lives, and just very quietly, like a lot of things that were behind the scenes that most people didn't know, like that was something that I knew from an early age was something that I wanted to emulate, because I also saw how they did that for me. I attribute a lot of this to my parents just because I love my parents a lot. I respect them a lot, and I'm grateful for just a lot of things that they taught and instilled in me. But work ethic was another thing. That's always something, like, my parents just taught me the value of work and how important that is to set your mind to something, and just how exciting it can be. I think a lot of times we get intimidated or we get frustrated when we have to work for things, but there is such a payoff when you work really hard for something and you want something and you put this effort into it, that when it starts to work, like, that makes me feel so alive. And I'm like, oh, like, I put so much work into this, and it's just that payoff. That's something that's really important to me too, is just really working towards things and setting goals, and like not being afraid to go after things. That's something my parents also were great at. I think growing up, I wanted to play sports. I wanted to dance. I wanted to do music and play clarinet. I wanted to do all of these things. I was in theater, and my parents were so encouraging of that, of just exploring a lot of different things and having a curious mindset of like, well, let me try this and see if I'm good at this, or just kind of just put myself out there. And that's something that I'm grateful for now, especially as a performer, because I'm putting myself out there a lot, and it can be intimidating, but I feel like I was kind of taught that from a young age, to just try things and to not be afraid of failure, but looking at more as learning and growth. And then just faith. Faith is a very important thing in my life, and God is a very, I would say it's like the foundation of my life, and I'm very grateful that I was just taught that from a young age, and taught to just really seek a personal relationship with God, because that's been a lifeline throughout so many things in life, through the ups and the downs and the in-between. But yeah, I would say just community and hard work and pursuing, not being afraid of failing and pursuing passions and interests of mine, and faith in God.
So, were there any other influences besides your parents, such as coaches, teachers, who helped shape
Oh,
who
yeah,
you've become?
absolutely. There's a lot of people, a couple teachers that I just really connected with, a few in elementary school, one in high school that I just really, she was so good at just encouraging me to step outside my comfort zone. I remember she found out that I sang, and I was like, I don't know. I wasn't trying to keep it a secret, but I was so nervous to sing in front of people. And so she's like, well, we have a school assembly this Friday, like 2 days before. She's like, you're singing the national anthem. And I was like, what? I can't do that in front of the whole school? No way. But that was really good for me to just put myself out there. And she was always really encouraging of that. Her name was Helen Paris. She's great. And just always taught us to live in the moment and to just really seek after just the dreams and passions that we had, and to not be afraid of it. And that had a lasting impact on me just as this like 16, 17-year-old in high school. And then there were some leaders within my church that just really impacted me as well. And I just had a bond with that just inspired me to just seek after being the best version of myself, and to, again, not be afraid to put myself out there. So a lot of people.
Yeah. We're talking with Ashley Hess, singer-songwriter and a finalist on the 2019 series American Idol. We're really fortunate to have you with us, Ashley. Speak to me for a few moments about why music as a platform for you is important for you to express your values. Yeah. And as a singer-songwriter particularly. Yeah,
I think music is such a powerful means of expression, and just I think it has the ability to just kind of break down a lot of barriers. And at least for me, I know the way that I connect with music, I've never experienced anything like that. And especially as a singer-songwriter, I think there's just a lot of power that you have as a musician and with a platform to be able to share music. And because if people connect to that and are singing, like they're singing words that you're writing, so what you're saying is really, really important. I have so many moments where I've been listening to a song, or I've been at a show, or like I hear a song that I resonate with so much that it makes me feel not alone, and it makes me feel seen, and it makes me feel just so connected to someone I've never met, or someone I might not even know anything about, but I just feel this sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of connection. And I think that that's so beautiful, the power that has. I remember I was opening for this artist. His name's Andy Grammer. He is an incredible artist and very accomplished, very amazing. And he was so kind to talk with me before the show. And I just sat with him, and I was just asking for advice, just picking his brain, because just seeing his career, I was like, I would love to have a career similar to yours. Like, what advice would you give somebody that's up and coming and trying to do the same thing? And he just said, if you stripped away all the music, if you took away all of the sounds, all of the instruments, everything, and all you were left with your lyrics, would you be proud of the legacy you left behind? Would you be proud of what you said? Would you feel like that represented who you are as a person? And that really stuck with me, because I think, especially in the music industry, I think a lot of times in songwriting, there's a saying that's kind of coined in songwriting. It's melody is king, right? So melody is what draws people in, like the sounds that they're hearing, and that's what gets stuck in their head. But then for me, lyrics are so important, because what they're singing is so powerful. Like what the words are and what you're saying, I think is so powerful. And not to put too much weight, it's not like I write all these like deep songs all the time. Sometimes it's just how I'm feeling. But I do look at it, there is, I think, a sense of responsibility of an artist and sharing music and putting things out into the world of like what you're saying. Like, is that helping people? Is that hurting people? Like, what is the intention behind what you're doing? And for me, I've always tried to create music that either makes people look in and connect with themselves, or look up and connect with a higher power, or with others, or with community, and just trying to help people feel seen and not alone in things. And I think music, at least in my experience, has the ability to break through anything that might be a barrier or blocking that. Or even like I'll hear a song that's not even in English that I don't understand the language, but it still touches me just because of the sentiment and the emotion behind the sound and feeling. And so I just feel very blessed and grateful to have the gifts that I have and to be developing them and to be able to share them. It's sometimes it feels like a heavy responsibility, but most of the time I'm very grateful, and it's I just feel very blessed.
So I'm wondering, as a songwriter, I'm a writer, and
Yes.
I write a lot of poetry, but most of the poems I've written have never seen the light of day because I go, well,
Yeah.
I'm not quite ready to release that on the world.
Yeah.
But in terms of a lyricist, as somebody who writes, do you have a lot of music that you've just never really shared, or do you feel you just stay with it until it gets good enough to get out there?
Oh, absolutely. I have plenty of music that has never and will never see the light of day. I think just as I was talking about how beautiful putting things out into the world can be, and how beautiful lyrics and just the platform of music, like the effect that has and the impact that has. Also, sometimes that is just a form of expression for me. And so I just like want to get things out, and songwriting is usually the best way I know how to do that. And sometimes, even if I feel really strongly about what I'm saying, or I'm like, wow, this is such a beautiful sentiment, sometimes it's just not good. And I'm like, I'm just not going to put that out. But it's just the habit of, just writing and staying on top of, keeping that gift and that talent and exercising that muscle. But there's plenty of songs that I've written that I'm like, definitely not my best work, or maybe not something I want to put out there. But I'm just grateful for the avenue that I have to express that. So.
Well, writing is such a personal kind of existential experience.
Absolutely.
And getting the confidence. I mean, I know I've been writing poetry for maybe 10 years.
Wow.
But was never really confident about what I was writing. And I happened I was in Harvard. I did some postgraduate work at Harvard. And I was in a poetry shop. And the Nobel Prize winner poet Seamus Heaney, who is one of my favorite poets, was in that shop, and he was engaged in a conversation with the proprietor, and then he invited me into the conversation. And then he invited me at the end of the conversation to give him one of my poems, which I just said, oh my word, do I really want to do this? And I wound up sharing it with him, and about a month later, I get this envelope in the mail with my poem, and it's got some marks on it and some notes on the poem. And then he said at the very bottom, by the way, you are a poet. Wow. And from that moment on, my confidence level, but still, there are poems I write that I don't release.
Right.
And I'm wondering, in terms at what point for you in your journey did you realize, I can do this?
I have a similar experience. I think I was talking with a friend, and they introduced me to some of their friends. They're like, oh, this is Ashley. And they were asking, oh, what do you do? And at the time I was working in marketing for this big company. And he was like, oh, she's a singer-songwriter. And I was like, oh, that's not how I introduced myself. I'm like, oh, I work in marketing for this company. And we just talked about it after, and he was like, you're never going to take yourself seriously unless you start claiming what you're doing and like owning what you're doing. And I didn't realize how much of a shift just came when I started just telling people, oh, I'm a singer-songwriter, and just kind of owning that rather than just looking at it as, oh yeah, I do that too, but this is like my main job, because that's what I was doing at the time. And so when I kind of made that shift, I started looking at it as like, no, this isn't just a hobby. Like this is actually like what I want to be doing. And so that started, just that subtle shift of just introducing myself as a singer-songwriter to people shifted a lot. And then I think it was just like a year later after I started doing that, I was working at this job, and then I actually moved. I was living in Utah at the time, and I moved to Nashville because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I have to like really commit and really do this and like give it a fair shot and see. So I moved to Nashville, and once I moved to Nashville, I started writing a lot, and that's when the American Idol opportunity came. And then I think that's when I really was like, oh wow, I can do this. Like I really think that I can do this. And then it started working. So just the subtle shift of owning that and not being afraid to tell people, no, yeah, this is what I do.
Well, despite a Nobel Prize winner in literature, Seamus Heaney, calling me a poet, I've never put it on my business card.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should start.
Yes, I should start that.
Yeah.
So, how did you get involved with American Idol?
So that is not a typical story. I had just moved to Nashville, and I was writing with a guy out there, and he actually was a casting producer for American Idol, and he was like, you should come audition for the show. I can schedule you an audition. And I initially said no. I was like, I just moved to Nashville. Like, I really want to get involved in the scene out here. I want to work on songwriting. I want to be performing. Just American Idol was not really on my radar at all, for multiple reasons. I think the show is amazing, and there's so much talent that comes from that show. But I also understand that you do better on those shows if you have a story, if there's something compelling about you. And I'm like, I have a really normal life. My family's amazing. I don't have some like huge tragic thing that I feel like I could use as part of my story or anything like that. So it just wasn't on my radar. And he was like, well, you have nothing to lose. Like, you should just come. And so he actually set up an interview or an audition for me with the executive producers, which was great. I got to skip like all the cattle call lines. And so I just kind of went thinking like, I have nothing to lose. This could be a really great opportunity, but I was still so set on just moving to Nashville and getting involved in the scene there. And so I'm actually grateful I went in with that mentality, because I didn't put so much pressure on it. So I wasn't like, this is my one shot to make it, So I just went in and tried to just meet people and have fun with it. And it ended up going much, much better than I ever could have imagined. And that's kind of also what shifted things for me, because after that, I quit my full-time job, and I have been doing music full-time ever since. And so I'm so grateful for the platform that gave me, and that I went into it just kind of thinking like, this could be a really cool opportunity, but not necessarily putting all my eggs in that basket and knowing that I was going to make it work either way. So
we're talking with Ashley Hess, singer-songwriter and a finalist on the American Idol, and she works in music full-time. We're really honored to have her a part of our Legacy Project program. Ashley, what's the legacy you want to leave? When you stop and think about the life, I mean, I often think of Stephen Covey's book, The Second Habit, or 7 Habits of Highly Effective Lives. In the second habit, he talks about, living with the end in mind. And he imagines you attending your own funeral, and what would people say about you? And then he asks you, what would you like people to say about you? But when you think about your life and the life you're living and the contribution you're making as a singer-songwriter, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
For a long time, when I thought about what I want to do in my life and what the legacy I wanted to leave behind, it was always associated with things that I did, like accomplishments, or with achievements, or reaching certain milestones, or just kind of things of that nature, all surrounding things that I did. But I think more so, I've learned as I'm getting older, I'm just learning it's more about who I want to be and like what I'm becoming rather than what I'm doing. I think I get so focused on, just because I'm very goal oriented, I'm very like go-getter type. So I'm so focused on achievements and destinations, but I'm just, something that has really made me step back is honestly that concept of like, what would you want people to say? I've read that book before, and just like the idea of like, what would I want people to say at my funeral? And it's more so I want, this sounds so cliche, but just like, I just want people to feel loved and to feel seen and to feel a sense of connection. And I think there's so much in the world right now that is so divisive and that is so surrounded on negativity and all of these things, but there's also so much good. And I just want to be somebody that brings happiness and joy and love to people and a sense of connection. I think my slogan is like happy girl, sad songs. Like, I'm a very optimistic, bubbly, outgoing person, but then people hear my music and they're like, are you okay? Like, why is your music so sad? But that is just how I express myself. And I want people to understand that it's okay to feel that way and that they're not alone, but also that two things can coexist. Like, I feel like I'm very happy, but there are also things that you know, that all of us go through that are hard and sad, and you never know what's going on behind the scenes in someone's life. And I So I think especially with music and just in general, like I would love to leave behind a legacy of love and connection. I think connection is such a big word for me because I think when we feel connected to someone or something, it truly gives us purpose and it makes us feel not as alone or divided or isolated because we have that connection to something. And so I would love through my music or just through interacting with people and through the life I lead to help people feel a sense of connection, whether it's to me or to a community or to themselves or to God or whatever they believe in. I don't want people to feel alone. So I hope anything that I can do to help people feel a sense of belonging and community and connection and love I would be very happy.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You're involved in a couple of singing groups, right?
Yes.
What are they? What are the groups?
So I have my solo project. It's just Ashley Hess. It's just me.
And you can hear your music on Ashley Hess Music, right?
Yeah, ashleyyhessmusic.com is my website that has all like my Spotify, Apple Music, all the streaming, and then all the social media as well. And I'm actually in the process of releasing an album right now called Stages. It's surrounding the stages of grief. And so that's something important to me too, with a legacy of just like when people ask what type of artist I want to be, I always say an honest one. Like I just want to be as honest as I can be in my writing, even though that's so terrifying sometimes to put yourself out there and be honest in your experience. I think I've found the more honest I am in my songwriting and in just how I'm showing up, I feel like the better art and the more happy I am with what I've created. And so, releasing that. So just under my artist name, it's just Ashley Hess, the Stages of Grief project. It's heavy, but it's great. And then I also sing with a group here in New York. It's Gideon King and City Blog. It's a really cool band. It's like a jazz pop fusion band. And then I'm also a part of a group called The King Will Come. And it is a multi-denominational group of artists, singers, creatives, people from all different backgrounds, faith backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, just all across the board, all spread out across the U.S., just coming together to sing about our relationship with God and what that looks like. We call it relationship music because sometimes it's praise, sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's question, sometimes it's doubt, sometimes it's gratitude, and it just, we all just feel really passionate about just creating a personal relationship with God, and we've just been writing music about that. So this started about 2.5 years ago, and it started on accident, actually. We just, a lot of artists were just very like-minded, and we had been writing this music that was more, I guess you would say, like in the Christian realm, but we're like, we don't want to be necessarily just Christian artists because we feel like that you kind of get pigeonholed into just a certain genre, and we're like, no, we just want to build a community around this. So we just got together and started sharing the music we'd written and then started writing music together, and then just opened it up to the public to come and just hear the music we'd been writing. And then that kind of took off, and now it is an official group called The King Will Come. And it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And it's not tied to a specific religion. It's not tied to a specific faith. It's just relationship music about our connection with God, with a higher power, and trying to get to know him better.
So I have to ask, this album you're about to release, Stages Dealing with Grief, that kind of shocked me. Why grief? Why are you talking about grief?
So I wrote that album, like 90% of that album was written in 2020 when the whole world shut down. This was the year after I was on American Idol. I had all these shows and tours and like music, all these plans that I was so excited. I felt like just kind of like I was on top of the world. I was like, wow, like I never thought I would make it to this point of like doing music full time. I was in a serious relationship that was like a huge part of my life. And I just felt like so many things. I just felt so blessed and so grateful for the direction my life was headed. And then the world kind of shut down, which put a halt on all tours and live performances and just gathering in person in general. And that 5-year relationship that I was in ended, and I just started, like, I just felt like everything was crumbling, and I kind of went through my own just kind of downfall is what it felt like. That sounds dramatic, but I felt like everything that I was so excited about just kind of got ripped out from underneath me. And then that started, I started kind of questioning God, and just like, I just was really struggling in a lot of different areas, and it was really scary and it was really isolating, and I was living alone in Nashville and didn't have any family or like anyone close. Obviously at that time, none of us were really around other people, but so all I had was really writing. And so I wrote this whole album, not with the intention of it being the stages of grief. That just naturally was what I was writing. It was through the different stages. And so these songs are just kind of my experience with grieving the loss of a relationship, grieving the loss of a future I thought I was going to have, grieving the loss of so many career goals, grieving the loss of myself and a version of me that I used to be that I was kind of struggling to find, and becoming a different version that was very unfamiliar to me. And so, yeah, this album just covers a lot of those things, of just grieving a lot of different things. And a lot of people close to me in my life at that time were losing people to COVID and to different things. And so the actual loss of life. And so I found myself writing through all those different stages. And then when I was looking at the collection of music I had written over the year, I just was listening, and I was like, I can hear denial, I can hear anger, I can hear depression, I can hear bargaining, I can hear acceptance across all these different songs. And I was like, wow, this is the stages of grief in music form. And so I just had this whole vision of how I wanted to release the album, with visuals and with each stage. And so I've just been in the process of rolling that out, and it's really wild now to be putting that out in the world, something that was so personal and so scary and so lonely for me, because I kept a lot of that to myself. That's not really something that I broadcast to the world, but now it's like, well, here is my grief on display. But it's been really special to see how people have connected with it and related to it, and it has just kind of reconfirmed the power of music and how we truly aren't alone in things that feel so isolating and lonely. But when we're open and honest about that, vulnerability is just the pathway for connection, right? And so it's been really beautiful to connect with so many people on something that felt so heartbreaking and life-altering for me, that felt so lonely, that I was like, no one can understand this, no one's going through this. But I'm like, no, we all go through our own versions of that. And as I've been open and sharing that experience, those different experiences through my music and just through what I've been releasing, it's been really, really beautiful to kind of be building this vulnerable community of people opening up and sharing about their own grief. And so I just feel so grateful and so blessed to have the platform that I have to be able to share that, and for people who feel comfortable enough to open up about their experience and their experience with what I've been putting out. So it's been really special.
So to what extent does that experience that you went through that kind of fueled the creativity that produces an album, to what extent do you think that message and that experience is going to forever be a part of the legacy that you've created?
Wow. That's a powerful question. I hope it's long lasting. I think what was so hard for me, it's so interesting looking back on like 21, 22-year-old Ashley that was just kind of starting to really dive into music and being like, okay, this is what I want to do. But I was so afraid of being vulnerable. I was so afraid of being honest. I started off covering other people's music because I was like, oh, I can just sing this how they sing it and it will sound good and that's good enough. But then as I started songwriting, it unlocked a level of vulnerability in myself that I didn't share the music for a long time. I was writing without putting anything out. I was still doing covers on YouTube and things like that. But that is a big part of the legacy I want to leave behind, is just how important honesty and vulnerability and being open, like how that truly allows for connection, even though it's hard. I think for a long time I thought opening up about things that I was struggling with equated to weakness, which is quite the opposite, because I've known in my experience when people are open and honest with me about things that they've gone through, all I see is strength, and I see just how beautiful it is that I never could have imagined what people have gone through, and they're opening up about these things, and I just see how they've overcome and how beautiful and amazing the human experience is, even though it's so hard and heartbreaking, of just how people are able to overcome unimaginable things. And so it's interesting now that the music that I'm creating is so honest and is I kind of have this, I was talking to my manager about this. I'm like, the more scared I am to release a song, the better. Like, if I'm scared to put it out into the world, like, that's something that I just is exciting for me, because I'm like, wow, this is a new level of vulnerability. Like, I'm sharing something that feels really personal in hopes of allowing for connection. And I'm grateful that so far it's been received well, and it's opened a lot of conversations, and it's opened up a lot of avenues for connection and vulnerability with other people. So I hope that it is just a lasting theme in the legacy, whatever legacy it is that I leave.
Do you see yourself touring again?
Yes. Oh, performing is my favorite thing. I love just being on stage and just feeding off the energy of a crowd and connecting in that way, and then chatting with people after. It's like, it's so invigorating to me. And so that's a goal with this. Once I get this album out, is to go on tour and just play these songs live. And I'm so grateful that we can do that again. That was one of the hardest parts for me. Is it's not the same singing to a computer screen or singing to a phone screen by any means. I'm grateful that we have the technology that allows for that. But I love just being in a room with people and just being open. That's like another sense of vulnerability, is just being live and singing with people, and being able to connect after is something that it's like one of my favorite things about what I get to do. So
yeah. Well, I think this is my final question.
Okay.
Well, depending on how you answer this question,
Yeah.
there may be more. A question I ask every guest on our podcast, and I love romantic comedies, and so
me too.
One of my favorites is the movie Leap Year. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes.
Amy Adams. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of the questions that's asked in that movie is that if your house were on fire and you could only grab one thing, excluding pets, excluding family, any people, what's the one thing that you would grab that would summarize or express your life?
Wow. One thing? Oh my goodness. Honestly, this might sound cheesy, but I would grab my journal because I've gotten into that a lot more, especially since the pandemic. And that consists of so many things, of me journaling about experiences, just random things about my day, song lyrics, just different ideas that come to mind. There's like 2 notebooks that I have that have become journals for me. And I would grab hopefully both of those, but if I could only choose one, there's like one specifically that I would grab. So
I know I have this metal box that my father, who was in the Second World War, and was decorated. He was on an island, and it was a medic box that you treat soldiers with. And he gave me that box when I was in high school, and in that box I have placed every important symbol in my journey, whether it's a Bible or whether it's I did graduate work at Harvard, and I got my admission card in that, and I've been married a couple of times, and so a wedding ring from my first wedding marriage. I have those things in that box, and that's the thing I would probably grab as a symbol of my journey.
Wow.
And so, but journal's important.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to start doing that. That's such a good idea, of just like having a box of just mementos and things. Right. I love that. Yeah. I really love that.
I even have a lock of hair from my homecoming date in high school.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like a lock of hair from like a child, or like, but a homecoming date, that is hilarious.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever said that on this program before.
Well, I'm honored that now I know.
Yeah, that's right. We have been talking with Ashley Hess, and someone I met months ago at a concert event in Atlanta. Ashley was a finalist on the 2019 program American Idol. She's a singer-songwriter, and you can find her music on Ashley Hess Music on a variety of platforms. Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of our podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
To find out more information about this conversation and other Legacy podcast episodes, go to servantforge.org. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app and consider leaving us a review. We want to hear from you. This podcast episode was produced by Matt Erickson. The music is by David Hyde. Please look for a new episode of our podcast coming out soon. Remember, you have inherited a great legacy. You have an opportunity to create a great legacy. Engage your past to build a future.